In the sky, gazing far into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you. In the sky, gazing far into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you.
welcome to the latest Elite FPL podcast. Of course, it's Sunday, which means it's Sunday surgery time. Of course, it's myself, Stephen, and of course, I'm joined by, as Dan always used to say, my good friend Jason. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody in chat. Good evening, Steve-O. Just want to say that it's been another bad game week for a lot of people. I'm getting a little bit frustrated. In fact, I'm getting a bit more than frustrated. I'm getting a bit sick of it, to be honest. I'm really... You like to say the word disgusted. I just feel like I'm just not getting anything right. I'm thinking I'm doing logical moves. They're not paying off. And and then you get like pirate ghost teams that are like dead teams that have got like, you know, these players that from game week 1 and they're starting to overtake you, and you think, well, maybe I shouldn't have done anything in the first place and just left my team as it was. Yeah. God. I keep saying I can't wait till next game week. I keep saying, oh, it'll be better next game week. And ultimately, it's just red arrow after red arrow, and I'm gonna be 729,000 in the world. I mean, you're a bit further away, but I'm just thinking
a bit.
And then I'm just thinking, well, goodbye top 1K or top 100,000. That's my goal, to get in the top 100,000 at the. Now I'm just thinking, whoa, I'm going the wrong way. I'm going to be passing you in a minute, Steve-O. But anyway, we've got Notorious FPL in chat, FPL Penguin, Honey Glazed Gammon in there, Davey P, One Rivers Vlogs, been discussed in this game week. Phil Potter.
I wonder why Davey P's here.
Yeah. Greasy Trumpet, the Cape FPL, Vince Chapman. We've got Ian Emamali. I can't say that. Emamali, I think that is. Alex A. Anish is in chat. Dereko's in chat. VAR's in chat. We all love VAR, don't we? And Papa Smith. And many others. But yeah, I'm just... I'm interested to see what you guys have to say on the Sunday surgery, because although I've just literally sounded dejected and fed up, I do genuinely not have a clue on where to change my team and who. I'm thinking of Yarmolenko in for James, but we'll get to that anyway. But I'm still in the middle of the ocean without a compass at the moment when it comes to FPL. But Steve-O, you had a bit of a frustrating game week as well. To say the least, and it's all going to rest on tomorrow night, isn't it? It's going to come down to me with Dan James and you with the Bamyang. And I tell you what, Greenwood, yeah. And I tell you, I would much rather have a Bamyang in my team. A lot of people suggesting changing out Aguero for Bamyang. I think not at the moment. I don't think so. Wait for the next few fixtures for Man City at the least. Anyway, we've got some great fixtures, and maybe switch out in a few game weeks. Maybe. Pep Roulette is going to strike again, guys, and it probably won't be Aguero that is going to get affected. It'll probably be, again, it'll be the likes of Sterling and De Bruyne that you may find benched, because it's just the way he works and his rotation. We will have to get used to. FPL Penguins down to 550,000 in the world. Oof. No one's safe from pet rotation. Absolutely not. Steve, go on. Let's just kick off the show and talk about.
Let's quickly go over what's happened over this particular game week, and we will start with today's game. Leicester 5-0, 5 bloody nil. I'm going to count that as a non-swear word. Someone's already done a SMZ, of course, created that wonderful video regarding the in-betweeners and bloody being a swear word, but quite extraordinary. I know Davey P will be absolutely loving life. He's one of our moderators. He's in chat now. And here's a funny story. Well, it's not even that funny. I'm not going to use this on Piers Morgan when I'm on there one day, but when I was in the bathroom, shall we say, and using the facilities, I was just on the phone looking at the moderators league, and I was like, oh, Davey P's above me, may as well look at his team. And double Leicester defence. Why on earth would you have double Leicester defence? Oh, it's paid off. Brilliant. And yeah, so And of course, Marlon Moore today. I joked last night that when I was going through the top 4 teams that Marlon Moore, he had Jamie Vardy as captain. What did he know that I didn't? Well, he clearly knew that Jamie Vardy was up against an absolute shambles of a team and goes and gets 2 goals. He got a yellow card today, but it doesn't matter. He is more than likely going to get a 3. In fact, the bonus points are actually in. So Vardy's got 3, Evans 2, Pereira 1. There's a lot of point scoring here. So Vardy with 2 goals, Pereira with 1, Ndidi with 1. We had an own goal from Dummett. The assists were Evans, Barnes, Albright, and Perez, Pratt. And it's more for me the fact that Marlon Moore, who is going to be top now,
I know,
captained Jamie Vardy, despite the fact that he had Aguero, De Bruyne, Salah on his team. What the hell is going on, Jason?
It's that old question: is what do they know that we don't? And you've got to have balls to do something. Yeah, well, Jamie Vardy's a great captaincy option, but he hasn't been exactly on fire, has he, this season? So, I mean, it was a little bit of a gamble, but Newcastle at home, yeah, I can see why he did it. I think the sending off for Newcastle kind of paved the way for the destruction and the annihilation of 5-0, really. And I didn't watch the game. I don't know why. I just thought, well, I've got no one in this game. If I don't watch it, I can pretend it hasn't happened. I had this weird sort of mindset, and guess what? That didn't work, because I've still got my phone updates, and every time the goal was coming in, I was like, no, please don't be Jamie Vardy. Please don't be Jamie Vardy. Obviously, he got the 2. But yeah, Red Arrow's just got a bit more redder, I think.
Absolutely. And for everybody watching this now, if you want to come live on air with myself and Jason, we are going to be taking your calls. We're only going to be on there till about 9:30, 10 o'clock at the latest, but we are going to be taking your calls, so by all means get in the waiting room on the Discord. I'm not going to go through all the results from yesterday, Jason, because we're here all day and nobody really wants to talk about yesterday per se, but is there any results yesterday that stood out for you where you were just like middle finger up to the FPL god, whoever that may be? Who would that match be? I'm thinking maybe Man City, Aguero being benched. But of course, you're going to get that assist. That's what annoyed me the most.
Yeah, but it was bittersweet.
Yeah.
Because it was Sterling that got the goal, and he was captained by so many people. And I'm just thinking, I don't know, it's just the way FPL's turning out for me and you, I think. We're kind of we're just plodding along, not really going anywhere, sinking as we go. And I'm just thinking, do I need to make some real changes to my team, or is it okay? And I keep looking at my team. I'm thinking, is it that bad? Is it going to get a green arrow next week? And I'm thinking, that looks like a good team. Every week I'm like, that looks like a good team. That can do me well. And it's just bang average scores and red arrows.
When I look at the team from yesterday, I'll tell you what really. Let's have not an argument, but let's have a talking point, shall we say, for the Elite FPL community. But I looked at your team and I'm just like, Adrian and Matip, fine, fair enough.
Yeah, but the Loughton,
the Loughton assist. That was so. Don't get me wrong. I said last night I was so happy that obviously he got the assist for Wood to get us.
What's the chances that it's the one player? Yeah,
that does nothing, and then it just reminds me of last season between me and you. That tiny bit of luck going your way, and no matter what I seem to do, and no matter what my differential seemed to do, because obviously Gilbert got an assist, they just match whatever you do, no matter how random the players are. A Burnley player, an Aston Villa player, they still cancel each other out. Son with an assist.
I mean, I can't say it was the worst. It wasn't the worst game week. Obviously, Abraham, for many people, captained Abraham. He returned 2 points. Pookie again with a blank. Mane with a blank was disappointing. Obviously, a lot of people owning Salah. Liverpool were just disappointing. Obviously, that's. We don't need to go into more detail than that, really. And I'm not expecting anything from Dan James. In fact, I've already got my eyes on Yarmolenko.
I'm going to deliberately irk you because I like hearing you go mental. Someone in chat's upset that they got 407 points. What are your thoughts on that? You're on 398. They're on 407. They're upset about this. Your thoughts on this, Jason? Because I know before we went on air, you were just... You were getting a bit angry, and I want to hear you rant about
407
people doing well
points.
Complaining.
407 points isn't that bad. It's like what I would say 500,000, 400 480 to
400,000, yeah,
400,000. I mean, I wouldn't be getting upset about being in the top 500,000 in game week 7, game week 8. I'm getting really annoyed because, I just don't have. I normally have a kind of direction that I want to go in, and like we've seen over the last few weeks, I've just been basically making crazy moves, really, and to try and put my ship back. I keep using the ship analogy, but I just need to kind of have a course, and I don't have a course. And we're gonna have people coming on with 60 points, 70 points. They're gonna be going about, oh, this player didn't do this, and they're gonna be in the top, the top 100,000. And I've literally I'm not interested in hearing your sob stories, to be honest with you, because
do you know we had I think it was Jane last night. I think it was Jane or JK. I can't remember, but they came on my show and they were disappointed that they got 49 or 53 points, and I'm sat there like, what are you talking about? I'm on 39. You're taking the out of me. What are you on about? You're moaning that you actually got a really good score.
Yeah.
It's like what I find fascinating about the world of FPL is like people seem to think that every single one of their players should be scoring double-digit points.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's the thing is, I mean, yeah, I think what got me was the Aguero benching more than anything else. I mean, I know people are going to say it was bound to happen. It was on the cards. I understand. But I kind of had it in. Well, yeah, because of that Jesus throwing his dummy out the pram in the Brazil interview, saying about he's unhappy. So he had an interview with a Brazilian reporter about saying he was upset that he's not getting enough minutes domestically in the Premier League, and that he feels he should be playing more. And Pep basically came out and was like, oh, he's him and Aguero basically offer. There's two great players, and any other team we wouldn't have to bench Jesus. And basically the way he was kind of acting, because Pete, my friend Pete, Pete Smith, he was talking to me about it. He was saying, you know what, judging by what Pep's saying, it's kind of like intimating that he's, he can't choose between them, almost. He can't choose between Jesus and Aguero, and that they're friends and they don't mind. They're friends and they don't mind one being benched over the other. And I'm sure I saw Aguero get annoyed a few weeks back being pulled off. But I mean, it's just, I honestly thought that it would be the other way around. I thought Aguero would play 55, 60 minutes or something, and then Jesus would come on for the last 30 minutes or something like that. But it was just like, oh my God, Aguero benched, captain fail. And then, of course, in the dying embers of the game, he managed to pull off a jammy assist, and it was a jammy assist. I'm not gonna deny it. And obviously, Sterling owners are happy.
Talking of Man City, and you've just mentioned Sterling. Simeon Batcher has made a very interesting point here. Mahrez has 45 points, Sterling has 46. Mahrez is coming in for me as long as I have one strong bench player every week. I mean, Simeon Batcher, I know you're doing really, really well at the moment. I'd like to know your rank at the moment, because I know you're absolutely doing fantastic. What are your thoughts on Mahrez being the man that plays in every Premier League game?
I mean, if we look at Man City, and I don't know, you're guys probably going to think I'm mad now. But what about if we looked at it in a slightly different way? So obviously Mahrez there, what is he? 8.5 is he? Can hardly read that. I think he is. I think he's 8.5. Yeah. So basically, what I was thinking, like, a thought came through my head. What about if you had Mahrez, Bernardo Silva, and Kevin De Bruyne as your three Man City? Spread the funds out, and then just play them all. And then just have a decent bench player that you can rely on, like, because I'm just thinking, like, there's so many things that you can worry about with that Pep. You can't say Sterling's guaranteed, you can't say Aguero's guaranteed, and like just downgrading and having like Bernardo Silva, Mahrez, even David Silva really. But I was thinking maybe Mahrez, Bernardo Silva, and KDB for the prices that they're at, and then just basically not worry about, like, if one of them gets dropped, and then just have a decent go for it, Jason. David P says as a rival. No, that's a thought that this is what goes through my head. I'm thinking, well, to be honest with you, there's goals in this Man City team. They can come from anywhere, and like you said, Mahrez is on fire. Bernardo Silva is just on another world. Sometimes he's so good. And obviously they're going to be at risk of rotation, being benched and stuff. But for the money that they're at, I mean, you could always just reinvest in your bench, have a decent bench option to come off. Have a Mason Mount at 6.5 on the bench. Play those three. This is just. I'm just trying to think a little bit out of the box, a little bit from the standard KDB, Sterling, Otamendi, or the Aguero, De Bruyne, whatever. Because I do think you need to have 3 Man City, and I know I've got the 2, but I would like to have 3, and that's the thought.
Simeon Batchelor's 10,000th in the world. It's his first bad game week, but he probably still did better than you and I. I mean, looking over Mahrez's statistics, real life statistics, he's played 4 times 90 minutes. He's basically got returns in every one apart from it, and ironically, a 4-0 win against Brighton, where he got 0. Well, he got 0 returns apart from a clean sheet thing. But other than that, maybe onto something. I mean, Nasty Balls are currently 4th, I think, in our Cash Mini League. He makes the point that Mahrez only plays 1 in every 3. Well, looking at that, he's basically 2 in every 3, to be honest with you. I think that maybe you could be onto something, Jason. But I mean, I'm looking over my team at the moment, and you were saying about your team and what on earth can you do to... It's the same with me. There's nothing apart from maybe Digne.
Well, that's the thing is, I've used my wild card. You haven't, and obviously, I'm not saying you're going to be tempted at the moment. I know you've been talking about it the last few weeks, but like in all seriousness, like you said, if you were to wild card, are you just going to devalue your team? Because essentially, I think that's all you're going to do.
Yeah, and the players that I want to be bringing in are essentially all gone up in price. I can't afford them. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Abraham, to name but 2. Oh, and by the way, I've been seeing people in chat talking about Pookie.
There is going to be...
Everybody know now, the history is suggesting that Norwich are going to win comfortably, and the history is suggesting that whoever's up front for Norwich is going to do very, very well. Well, guess what? Who's up front for Norwich? It's Pookie.
I'm not getting rid of him before Aston Villa. No way.
Well, last season, he only played 1 match against Aston Villa and he got a goal. And the other player who was up front for Norwich got 2 goals in the previous games. So, I would recommend everybody keeping Pookie. I've seen a lot of people saying about captaincy. I don't know about that, but certainly... but what I will say, talking of the history, everybody, came out on top again. It suggested officially Harry Kane would be your best bet to captain, and came through again. So... I suggest that everybody listen out for the history whenever doing the preview. And talking of the preview, my goodness, I've never seen it so tight between myself, you, and in this case, Nimfria. Nimfria got 13 points total so far. You're on 10 and I'm on 12. It's essentially going to be coming down to tomorrow evening's game between three of us.
Did you say draw?
I went 2-1 to Arsenal.
Oh, you went 2-1 to Arsenal, same as me then?
Yeah, and then Freya went 2-1 to United, along with the history.
Right,
so, yeah. It looks like it's going to be a tight game, and as ever, history's done pretty well this week as well. So it looks like could be a very tight game tomorrow. We have a caller in the waiting room. For anybody that's in the whoever wants to come live on air, by all means, come into the waiting room and we can get you live on air. We're only going to be going on till about 9:30, quarter to 10ish, maybe 10 o'clock at a push, depending on the quality of the caller, as ever. Me and Jason are pretty annoyed at this particular game week. Myself and Jason just don't seem to know what to do. It's even more annoying for myself because everything I seem to do, Jason's random players seem to be countering anything that I do, but whatever. And we're not particularly happy, but let's hear what Shazza has to say.
Hello, Shazza. You're live on air on this Sunday surgery with Steve and myself. Have you posted your team, Shazza, in the team screenshots?
I've not. I'm just doing that now.
That'd be great.
Taking callers yet.
That's right. Nice.
It's a very, very, very good point, actually, Jason. Do you want to just quickly promote the video that you did about regarding Discord, please?
Yeah. So, guys, if you haven't seen it already, I had a few messages from people who watched the videos. They said they weren't quite sure about Discord. They weren't quite sure how it worked. Never used it before. And I've just basically done a little like video introduction to what Discord is and how to use it and how to join our community Discord. I would strongly recommend it, guys. If you are on lots of content sites for fantasy football and you just want to have a hub for all things fantasy football, information, injury information, score updates, bonus point updates, just general FPL discussion, it's a really great place to be. You can talk to other managers in voice channel, in text channels, and it's just a great community to be a part of. And
a question for you, Jason. Obviously, I know the answer, but a lot of people that are watching may not know. And I was asked this question last night: is it free?
100%. There's literally no restriction. Come in, talk to myself, Steve-O, and moderators, and everyone else. It's free and always will be.
Absolutely. Shazza, how is your game week going? Are you hating this game at the moment? Are you loving life? What's going on with your team?
This weekend I kind of zoomed out from FPL, but I got the notification on my phone that you guys are going live, so I was like, gotta jump in to talk to the boys.
Okay, why did you zoom out from FPL? What's annoyed you? What's made you sick to death of this game?
FIFA, really. Not really much, just real life stuff, to be honest. But I wasn't too focused on FPL this week. I thought the fixtures were a bit meh. After Saturday, I just looked at the fixtures and I was like, yeah, probably not scored many points in that, so I just kind of had today to chill. But I got average points, really. Just got 43 points. Wasn't too many. As me. Yeah. But because I played the Sun as well, I'm kind of hoping that I get more points on there tomorrow. But this is my team at the moment, and I don't see many changes to make because I feel like this week and last week were kind of like dud weeks, where everyone's going to change their teams and like panic buy or like change up what they're doing. But then we're going to go back into a regular pattern of Aguero scoring again, Sterling scoring again. We're going to have Liverpool clean sheets coming. I feel like it's going to go back to a regular pattern.
Yeah.
I think people are acting too quickly right now.
I think you may be right there, but I mean, just looking at that team, you've got players that are going up in price. I mean, Abraham there, McGinn's there. I think Mane's going to tick over well. I think he's going to keep up with Salah. Well, I'm certainly open for anyway. You got Alexander-Arnold, like Steve-O says. I mean, have you used your wild card? Sorry, did you say?
No, I haven't.
You haven't. No. So you haven't used your wild card. You certainly don't need to. I mean, you've got players that people want in their teams essentially, and you're right. I mean, it's a case of just holding true. You've still got Dino in your team. I still think he's a great asset. People jumping on obviously the likes of Tomori. Personally, for a budget option, I wouldn't mind Tomori in my team. Or we've got Pereira as an option for Leicester, Soyuncu. But yeah, I mean that team's balanced. It's a strong, balanced team. I mean, you wouldn't be necessarily playing Cantwell and Pukki every game week. You'd probably be playing a 4-4-2.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly no need for wholesale changes at all in that team going forward. And you're right, just hold it out and wait for the points next week for the points you missed out on this week.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'd go for.
I just want to say though, Yarmolenko, I really really look at that guy. Obviously he's now Spiral in chat's just mentioned his name. Steve-O talked about him as well in his podcast. He's got an international record that's unbelievable, and he, obviously other than being injured, now he's back. And what is it now? He's scored twice in 2 games now.
I think it's 3 and 3 or 4 and 4. I can't remember. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ludicrous. It's an absurd record. And Shazza, you're somebody that is more kind of, shall we say, interested in real life football, so to speak. And what were your thoughts on yesterday's games? Any talking points that you feel need to be discussed?
Well, I'm an Arsenal fan, so I wasn't really bothered about what happened yesterday. I was hoping Spurs would mess up against Southampton, but that didn't happen. I think Liverpool only beating Sheffield United 1-0 to a goalkeeper's blunder mistake. I think that was a bit of a lucky one for Liverpool, shall we say. I think City would be hot on their heels by Christmas. Bournemouth West Ham, that was a good game, it seemed. 2-2, fair result. I think Burnley did well to hold on against Aston Villa and come back against that. And then Watford are just looking shocking. And Jason's point about Yarmolenko, he might have a great record and stuff. But you remember last season when Watford won their first 8 games? I think they won all 8 games. We're probably jumping on Deulofeu and players like that and thinking, oh, they're going to skyrocket value and doing amazing. yeah, DLFO had a good season and stuff, but like, look at them now. Do you know what I mean? What's to say that Yarmolenko's not gonna?
But for the price point, I'm talking as well. I mean, yeah, you got other options like McGinn, which could get more points. But I'm just thinking, now's the time to get in ahead of other people. I think a lot of people are like not looking at Yarmolenko as much as they should be, really. But again, it's a lottery, isn't it? I mean, I'm talking about players and stuff like that people aren't thinking of. Maybe they are thinking more of him now. And you've got Pukki in your team. You're probably going to hold on to him for the Aston Villa game. But are you? Well, have you got any money in the bank?
Before you answer that, Shaz, I just want to address this comment made by a regular contributor, John Chappell, saying that Yarmolenko is too injury prone. He's a transfer in and out waiting to happen. This is again why I can't stand fantasy football. People are just relying on things that haven't happened. People banging on about underlying statistics and how I'm going to keep a player for X amount of time because underlying statistics say something, but they do absolutely nothing. It's not going to happen. It's the same with Yarmolenko. While he's fit, while he's ready, bring him in. He's scoring. Yeah. He's in form. He scored 3 and 4. Why would you not bring him in? Because you may be worried that he may at some point go down. That could happen to absolutely any player. And I appreciate the fact that John Chappell makes the point that he is injury prone. I'm not pretending that isn't the case, but for now he's in form, and let's be honest here, bring him in. But Jason, you're going to ask Shazza a question.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have got Callum Wilson in their sights at some point as well. We've obviously missed out on some of his returns. Have you got an avenue to bring Callum Wilson into your team, and if at all, who would it be for?
I think he's definitely on the radar. I mean, Callum Wilson, he's been playing great recently. His returns have been incredible since the beginning of the season. He's been slept on a lot. I think it would be nice to get him in, but I think I'd have to make a few transfers here and there. I'm not sure who for, but I do think possibly bring Pukki out, and I say that because of his away form. He's scored a couple of goals away from home, but like he's not been as effective away from home, and maybe this was just
unless he's getting hat tricks, during home games and stuff like that. I mean, I think at the moment it's like Callum Wilson, he just seems to be a little bit fixture proof, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He does seem to be pretty good.
Yeah,
at the moment. But then again, he's got Arsenal coming up. That's a shaky defence. I mean, we're terrible at the back, so he'll probably get a goal against us there. I feel like Callum Wilson will be your steady goal every game, if not every other game. Definitely attacking returns pretty much every game. So
even though I'm kind of going against what I normally say, which is what you've just said, Shazza, which is Callum Wilson's a consistent performer. If you were guaranteed every single home game that Pukki was to get double-digit hauls, so in this case, each home game he's got 17, 11 and 12. If that was guaranteed throughout the whole season, right, in all 16, 17 home games, whatever it works out to be, but he was the blank in every single away game, would you keep Pukki for the whole season?
I think I would, to be fair.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
100%. Why wouldn't you? I mean, you're going to have players that are going to blank anyway and be inconsistent. I look at Salah and Mane. Away from home, they did absolutely shocking. Like, Salah recently got that assist, and Mane hasn't scored in like 2-3 games now. So, I mean, for me, I would definitely take that, because Pukki any player getting double digits guaranteed in your team is someone you want to keep, right? You want guaranteed points.
And I assume you got him in when he was 6.5?
Yeah, I believe so.
So yeah, $1.5 million cheaper than Wilson. Yeah, at the start of the season. I think it's too early to say for definite if that's going to be a worthwhile transfer. I think just wait to see what he does in that home game against Villa. Really, Steve-O seems to think that Norwich will do well in that fixture. I think that he will get in on the points. But again, it's a wait and see on that one.
For sure. I mean, he's scored so many goals. He's had the hard game so far, hasn't he? Have they played Chelsea? I know they've played City and they've played Liverpool, but I don't know if they played Chelsea. I feel like they might have.
No, I don't think they have. No, yeah. I don't think the Chelsea have. No. Oh yeah, they have. Yeah. They won 3-2. Well, they lost. Yeah, they lost 3-2. Sorry.
Yeah, it was a close game at the beginning of the season. So they've played 3 of the top 6 already, and that just says to me that the games can only get easier for Pukki, especially like at home. He's going to have easier home games to get more points. So maybe we haven't seen the best of Pukki yet. I'm not sure.
Just something really bizarre is that in the last 3 away fixtures, Norwich have lost 2-0. That's really weird statistic. Very peculiar indeed. But Shaz, have you got any final thoughts from yesterday's games before we let you go and bring on our next call?
No, not yet. But just thanks for the great content as always. I love tuning in, and it's always something to watch. It's a great listen.
Thanks, Shaz.
Cheers.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Nice.
No worries. Have a good evening.
Let's bring on Stein. The other day, he just completely cut off when we were about to have a long discussion, and hopefully Stein can join us, and all his tech issues are all right.
Hello, Stein. You're live on air on the Elite FPL podcast. How's it going, buddy? Hello, Stein. Can you hear us? You got your mic muted at the moment. Stein, are you there, dude? Oh, no.
He's gone.
Let's go with FPL Aguero. FPL Aguero, you're live on air in the Elite FPL podcast. Sunday surgery. How you doing, dude?
Evening, lads. How you guys doing?
Yeah,
Evening.
right. I'm not too bad. I'm not jumping for joy, put it that way. But how's your game week been, FPL Aguero?
The Elite Elimination League on 31st. I didn't put the
Right, okay. Right, brilliant.
for you guys. I wouldn't be too worried. Basically, I only 29 points off 120k, so I wouldn't be worried.
Just
How many points?
where are you in the Elite Elimination? Sorry.
31st.
Right.
Intro's on fire. I think it is.
Oh yeah, I got him. Yeah. Right, so 63 with a -8.
God, blimey.
Wow.
Yeah, I like my
So what was your -8? Can you just tell me?
4 transfers. I think it was Kelly, Edison. What else did I put? I put Pereira in, Oria in, and another defender.
Oh, Pereira in.
What on earth was the mindset to bring? What on earth made you bring in Pereira?
I just wanted him. I think he's the second best right back in the league, in my opinion. So I think he has a lot of freedom under Rodgers. He bombs forward whenever he wants. He has a decent cross on him as well.
Yeah, I mean you're right. He is a great attacking option. And that transfer has really paid off for you. Really has. And
Seems to be a player that likes playing at home because all his returns have been at home. A 9-pointer, a 9-pointer, and today a 13. The only time he blanked was ironically in a 3-1 win against Bournemouth. So maybe you're onto something there, Aguero.
There was this one game this week which sparked my attention because Wolves won 2-0. I don't know if you guys have checked the stats out in that game, but 6 shots in that game, and one was and Watford had 16, 8 on target, % possession. So I'm thinking of doing a -4 next week to bring 2 Watford players in.
Really?
To Watford, the biggest joke of a team in the league, and you're willing. I was actually discussing yesterday whether Watford are playing, you captain a player from that particular team. You're thinking of bringing in Watford players. I don't understand that logic.
You're doing so well at the moment.
Go for Tom Cleverley, and Oria's gone to Holebos.
What? I'm sorry. Are you taking the pick out of me and Jason here? Because I'm sorry, but this is just. Who's Watford got next? They're on.
Who are you going to take out? Who are you taking out? Sorry for Cleverley. Who are you going to take out?
Cantwell to Tom Cleverley, and to Holebos.
For real, you're not. You're genuinely thinking of doing this.
I'm gonna do it, yeah.
And just tell the audience, and again, to reiterate the point as to why you're doing this.
I think Watford will smash Sheffield at home next week.
And what makes you say this? I mean, Sheffield United are no mugs. They've got Lundstrom for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Watford were unlucky against Arsenal. They should have won that game. And if it wasn't for Patricio yesterday, I think they could have lost.
Well, if it weren't for Henderson, I don't think Liverpool would have beaten Sheffield United.
Yeah, but I just like Watford. I think they're better than where they are.
Okay. Well, I mean, to be fair, that's a different thought process than I would say the majority of FPL managers that I've spoken to. And who am I to say to someone that's 30 points higher up in the overall points and well above me and doing so well. So I mean, whatever you seem to do at the moment seems to be working out for you. And obviously you brought in the right players this game week. Who knows? Watford could be the team to jump on after such a poor start to the season. Could it be? The irony.
I like their fixture in Game Week 9 as well. I think they play Game Week 9, Game Week 10, I think. They got Bournemouth at home. I like that fixture as well.
So you honestly thinking about sticking with a Watford double up going forward after that?
I want to double up on Watford for the next 3 weeks.
Okay.
Just to remind the audience, their next fixtures are Sheffield United at home, Tottenham away, Bournemouth at home, and then Chelsea at home.
And Holebas against Tottenham and Bournemouth, I would be expecting yellow card, 2 goals conceded, a solid 0.
You know when you get those teams that, like for instance, the top scoring team last night had 103 and it was a ghost team. They hadn't done anything since game. Literally, it was just a team made from game week 1 and left. I feel like you are this player, Aguero. I just can't get I just honestly think I feel like you're taking the mick, but you're not. You're actually being absolutely genuine, and you've got your reasonings as to why you're choosing 2 Watford players that have done absolutely nothing all season apart from Tom Cleverley getting a goal.
This is gut. This is gut, though, isn't it? This is FPL Aguero. You're going with your gut. You've looked at the statistics. You think that Watford are deserving of returns. I'm not quite sure where the Holebas ideas come from, but I don't know. I don't rate Cleverley.
If I tell you that Cleverley is averaging the same stats as John McGinn, would you believe me?
Yeah, but again, it all depends on how you interpret these stats. That's like, I'm not being funny, but like, you've got to use the eye test, and Watford just haven't been looking amazing at all this season. And if the players are in the right areas and they're making the right runs, that's only half the battle. They still need to get and score goals, get assists, and if that's not happening, then I'm not going to be getting them in for an FPL asset, put it that way. But that being said, you've obviously looked at it, you've decided that's what you want to do. You've made transfers, they've paid off already this week. Who am I to turn around to you and say don't do it? I mean, at the end of the day, it's your team. I'm just surprised at those players. I still think Cantwell can tick over well, especially with a fixture at home to Aston Villa. I still think that there's goals in that for Norwich, which he could be a part of. I understand you want to get Aurier out, but I'll be looking elsewhere personally instead of Holebas, because Holebas is just a yellow card magnet. If you look at his record, he doesn't mind getting himself booked. That would be my only worry. And obviously, the likes of Tottenham and Bournemouth in his next 3 fixtures, you're banking on an assist really from a corner or something like that. You're certainly not going to be hoping for a clean sheet, surely, FPL Aguero.
It's because I don't want to play Pereira next week because he's away to Liverpool.
I would play Pereira against Liverpool over Holebas. But that's because of what you just said a minute ago to me. You brought him in because of his attack. I mean, he's got a tough fixture at Liverpool, but as we saw with Sheffield United, Liverpool aren't exactly the best defense at the moment, are they? Let's be honest.
Never been a great team away from home, but at home they're a totally different team at home. They can be there to Napoli, they can draw a game here and there, but at home they're really strong. And Watford had actually 65% of the ball against Wolves. That's just something.
But it's one thing having the ball, but it's what you do with it, isn't it? I mean, yeah, I can see what you're saying. You're looking at the stats. All the stats seem to be in Watford's favour for the few select game weeks you've looked at. It's just that I agree with the chat. Someone in chat a minute ago said doubling up on Watford is a risk. Steve-O's also said it's a bit of a risk, but it's players that no one else really has got. So I mean, if they're to return points, you could be soaring up the leaderboards. But I just would, yeah.
Just
But it's like you said, Jason.
same team as everyone, like
Yeah.
I look at those players where less than 5%, 4% own that can just do a 15-pointer like Pereira today.
But I'm looking at your team, Aguero, and you've got Adrian in goal. That's a differential. Matty, a differential. Otamendi, a differential. Pereira. And then you've got the basis of the players that you kind of want in your team: Mane, Son, De Bruyne, Aguero. You've got Allaire in there. Mason Mount's another one as a foundation thing. I don't think, again, it goes back to the whole thing of we could be going around in circles here, and I don't want to be doing this, but you're 124,000 in the world. You seem to know what you're doing. Me and Jason are just taken aback by the fact that people like you are bringing in players like Tom Cleverley and Holebas, whereas people like me and Jason are bringing in Abraham and Otamendi, and they can't do anything. So
Yeah. And I'm thinking of Yarmolenko. Maybe I should be bringing in Tom Cleverley. No, but but FPL Aguero, I appreciate you coming on and talking to us about this because it's different, and I love different callers, and I'm so interested in seeing how you get on over the next 2 or 3 game weeks. I really am, and I tell you what, I am looking forward to saying sorry to you if you do go, and if it pays off, I'll be the first person to. I literally will apologise, and I'll say you, my friend, know something that I don't about FPL.
I'll give him the old middle finger.
Thank you, FPL Aguero, for coming on tonight. Cheers, buddy.
Simeon Bachelor's, thank you, Aguero. Wonderful call there. Good discussion. Simeon Bachelor's come on with a question for you. Jason, who are you looking to replace Adrian with? I also have the same goalkeeper, and Klopp thinks he'll be back for the Man United game, whenever that is going to be. I'm assuming that's after the international break, which we know that's the case anyway. And all the 4.5 million keepers have poor fixtures. So what are you thinking, Jason? Have you thought about this, or is it just, I'm not even thinking?
I'm thinking Ryan.
Oh, yeah, him.
Your mate Ryan.
That's got more points in 7 game weeks than he did for me in 15. Absolutely.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. I'm trying not to think too much about my goalkeeper at the moment. I'm looking at Dan James first and foremost, but I am aware. Do you know what the irony is? I would love to save a transfer. I really would. It's been so long since I've saved a transfer. Let's
try Stein again. If he's unmuted his mic, but if he's not there after 3 seconds, we'll then bring on Anish, I think.
Stein, are you there, buddy? Hello, Stein. Can you hear us? Stein, are you there, dude?
No.
I saw something. Are you there, Stein?
No, he's not there. Let's bring on Anish.
Oh dear, that's a shame. I was looking forward to speaking to Stein. I got Anish live on the Sunday Surgery Show. Good evening, Anish. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Well, I first and foremost, people don't keep asking me how I'm doing. I'm doing really bad. I hate FPL at the moment. It's just not going for me. But how are you?
Yeah, but it's alright. It's been an average.
It's been a what? Sorry?
Average game week.
Average game week. What score are you on, sorry?
52 minus 4.
Oh, that's good. That's decent. 48 points. 48 points. You obviously, you are you looking at the game week on your captaincy failure? Are you? Is that how you're judging yourself? Because to be honest with you, majority of your team have actually paid off. I mean, you got Van
That's the
Dijk.
moves that I made because I took a hit this game week, so the players that I took out actually scored and returned points.
Who did you take out?
Remind us who that was again, yeah.
McGinn and Coleman.
Oh, that sucks.
Hey, good. I'm glad that this happened as a rival. I'm happy this is Jason's the.
Wow. That does suck.
One.
Yeah, that does suck.
But the players that I brought in also scored points, but it's just the fact that I could have saved those 4 extra points.
You could have, but it's done now, and your team is set up for the future game weeks. Obviously, that was the plan when you brought him in, and you've got the man, the myth, the reality, the legend. That is Matt Ryan in goal.
Yeah.
Steve-O's mate, Matt Ryan. Are you sticking with Matt Ryan?
Yeah, I think I'm going to keep him throughout the fixtures just to the end of the season.
Yeah. I'm thinking maybe I need to bring him in as well. But Van Dijk, Otamendi, Alexander-Arnold, going back to this double. This is what everyone was saying about the beginning of the season, getting double Liverpool defence, Salah in midfield, sticking back to that old chestnut. And we got Mount, De Bruyne, Sterling, all returning you points. Your vice captain Sterling, of course. You've captained Abraham with the 4. Cantwell and Pukki just, away from home, they just don't look the same team, do they?
The thing was, Abraham could have easily gotten a brace in that game.
He could have, but Aguero could have got 5 goals in the Norwich game, but he didn't. It's just, you can't live life like that. And you've had a good game week, really. You've got above average score. Your captain hasn't returned, but worse things happen at sea. And you've got your team set up for next week. Obviously, are you going to be? You're going to be probably playing the same team, aren't you, next week?
Yeah, exactly. I'm just unsure on whether to play Cantwell or Lundstrom.
Oh, I'd be playing Cantwell, to be honest, that home fixture. What about yourself, Steve-O?
Sorry, say it again.
Having
looking over
Norwich at home to Aston Villa, would you be playing Pukki and Cantwell?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You wouldn't be thinking of playing Lundstrom?
No, you came on yesterday, didn't you, Anish? And I think that looking at your team here, I think your team's fine. I think the team for next week's absolutely fine, and I would play Pukki and Cantwell at home, especially against Aston Villa. The history is suggesting a high-scoring 3-1 victory to Norwich, and whoever's the striker for Norwich always does really, really well. So Pukki's up front, doing really well this season, and I'd like to think that Pukki will do pretty well as well. I mean, going on Matt Ryan for just 2 seconds here, seems like he likes playing away from home. All his big scoring has come away from home, barring at Man United where he got 0, but away at Watford 9 points, 10 points away at Newcastle, and 4 points in a 2-0 loss against Chelsea. So, and looking at Matt Ryan's fixtures upcoming, they're at home to Tottenham, so that's going to be 0. And then away at Aston Villa, there's your 6 points. And then he's got 2 home fixtures. So actually, you may not want to bring in Matt Ryan after all, based on so far this season. But...
So far, but then everything I seem to do just ends up falling apart. So sorry to yourself, Anish, and any other Matt Ryan owners before I get onto him. But no, I mean, Anish, it's you can't really be that disappointed with your team, really, looking at that. And you're set up for next week. Have you got any final thoughts?
No, not at the moment. Just thanks for the content.
Very quick question. Timo Pukki, for you, if he blanks at home to Aston Villa, are you getting rid?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely. I've already decided I'm getting rid whether he scores or blanks.
Oh, so he could get a hat trick and you still get rid of him?
I'm going to get rid of him either way because he's no good away from home.
Who are you going to get him in? You're going to do a Callum Wilson then?
I'm doing TAA to Doherty. And
Doherty?
Doherty?
Yeah, because the Wolves fixtures turn good.
Okay. You're not getting in Tom Cleverley, are you?
I'm getting Vardy and Doherty in for TAA and Pukki.
Vardy and Doherty in. Oh, I like the Vardy. I tell you what, I don't know if I'd be getting rid of TAA.
Yeah, is this just jumping on the bandwagon because of yesterday's score? I mean, Wolves have been absolutely appalling this season. What on earth is making you think bring in Doherty?
Just looking at the fixtures from Gameweek.
Well, they're away at Man City next. That's Man City. I'd like to think will destroy Wolves, but you never know. And then Southampton at home. I mean, at the end of the day, I've said this all season that facetiously, but I'm pretty much right. Wolves are going to draw every single game. So they're not going to lose to Man City. They're not going to win.
And also, they're in Europe, aren't they, on the Thursday?
That's correct. Yeah.
Before. So I don't know, mate. That sounds like a massive risk. I would say
from Game Week 9 onwards.
From Game Week 9 onwards.
Look at the Wolves fixtures; they look good. So
you're not doing it ahead of Game Week 8?
No.
Right, so from Game Week 9, they were home to Southampton, away at Newcastle, 2 very tough fixtures for Wolves at the moment, because Wolves, like I said, are atrocious. Arsenal away, well, they're going to beat Arsenal, we all know that. Aston Villa at home, Bournemouth away. Yeah, they're nice fixtures, but I would again,
Trent Alexander-Arnold, I am starting to feel worried that I don't own him. And when I speak to you, someone that's thinking of getting rid of Trent Alexander-Arnold, I just think, wow. I would love it if everyone did that, because his price would go down and it would be easier for me to get him in. So yeah, everybody, guys, if you own Trent Alexander-Arnold now, it's a public service announcement, guys. If you own Trent Alexander-Arnold, get him out. He ain't good for you. Right, no, but seriously, I don't think I like that. The Vardy move I like, and I know you need the money to do it. I don't know if I'm convinced.
Well, as Matt Brunner's making the point, as GWiz famously says, hashtag play your own game.
That was not an impression of GWiz, surely not. It was
terrible. I'm trying to get the Cockney accent.
Oh my god! I hope he's not watching the stream.
Yeah, he's not there, but he
stick with the boom, 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 mate.
Yeah. All right, lads. But let's bring on James, shall we? Jack,
thank you, Anish. Speak soon, buddy.
Thank you for your call. Thank you. Let's bring on James. He tried to come on last night, but unfortunately, due to tech issues, he couldn't do whatever he was trying to do. But
good evening,
James. Are you there?
Oh, how are you?
Still tech issues.
No, I can hear him. I can hear him fine. I'm good. James, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right.
Oh,
cool. Did you mute him, Steve-O?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
No, that's why you couldn't hear me yesterday.
Maybe you just accidentally pressed the button or something. There you go. Steve-O muted you. James, we've seen people wanting to bring in Tom Cleverley and Olabas in.
Yeah, I saw
get
that.
rid of Trent Alexander-Arnold. Are you thinking of making changes to your team?
Well, yes, not this week, even though I do have Aurier. Which I took a -4 to bring him in, so that was not ideal.
So who are you going to play then? Who are you going to play then? Kelly.
Yeah, I'm hoping Kelly's going to sort of get a game on merit now, rather than sort of him just playing because Tompkins or Sacco isn't there.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
58 points. Unbelievable.
And he's got Serge Aurier, red card.
Yeah.
Nothing from Otamendi and Pope, nothing from Salah, and he's still got. It's all in those. That Sterling captaincy, king of all people.
Yeah, king. Oh, what a man!
How can you remind the audience and remind myself? Why do you own Josh King?
Why do I own King? Just from when I've watched the Bournemouth games, he looks like last week. I watched the Bournemouth game and I was really annoyed that he didn't get any points because he scored a goal that was ruled out by VAR and should have had a penalty. Like, if I hold on to King, he's got to reward me with it. I was literally talking to my mate the day before and I was like, King's the kind of guy, you hold on to him, he'll get like a double point a haul. I mean, I say that, but I feel lucky he's got the points, but.
Well, Bournemouth still look very good in attack, don't they?
They do, yeah.
And, I mean, we're not even talking about Ake. I mean, God, that...
Yeah,
he's having a great start to the season, isn't he? No, but in terms of King and, like, we're talking about Callum Wilson, but King is another one that's being relatively consistent.
Under the radar, for sure.
And I just think if you can't afford Wilson, why not go for King? That's the old adage, isn't it? I mean, it's a little bit less, especially if Pukki does blank at home to Aston Villa. We keep talking about Pukki, and I know I've already taken him out of my team once. I mean, it's becoming to get a joke, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So are you keeping him back? Are you keeping him in? Or?
Mate, I don't know what I'm doing with my team. Literally, I just know. I mean, Robert... I might give my team to my 2-year-old daughter and say, right, Hayley, decide a team, and there we go. We'll go with that instead.
There we go.
She'll probably do better than me.
Robert Novak has come in and said that the next 3 fixtures for Bournemouth are absolutely against teams with terrible defences. So let's just quickly highlight what Bournemouth's next 3 are, and let's find out who those defences are, because I'm interested to know exactly who those particular teams are, and they are as follows. So Arsenal away, yeah, fair enough. Norwich at home, Yep, and then Watford away.
I'll take that.
And Man United.
Yeah.
So
I-
four
That's
games
war,
in a
innit,
row. And then Newcastle away, Wolves at home. I would argue actually the next 6 are great fixtures
Yeah.
for Bournemouth for an attacking point
to
of
be-
view.
Yeah.
Thing-
But for me, to be fair, personally, I never expect my players to do anything away from home. Home form in particular. And I'm just like, you've
Well,
got
let's
to,
quickly
if
look
you're
over-
returning at home,
I'll just
That's
quickly
what
look over Josh King and his home versus away this season, and it looks like he is a mixed bag, but mainly. Oh, to be fair, it's mainly at home. So, his 2 double-digit scores, a 10-pointer and a 12-pointer, came in both home games. He did get an away points at Aston Villa, but it just seems to me a mixed bag with Josh King. It is literally, as you said, keep him and he's going to get you points sporadically, but they will be pretty good. Whereas Callum Wilson, 7.9, he is just, as we've just mentioned earlier on.
He's scoring every
just-
game. He's like a cheaper Bammy, I'd say.
Spot on. That's a great comparison, actually. A player, a slightly different quality from a real life perspective, but from an FPL perspective,
Yeah.
just
From
plodding
FPL,
along, getting the
which is what
returns
I-
that he needs, and I think
I just need to find $1 million from
Yeah.
somewhere. I need to pull $1 million out from just a player, and I just can't. I can't at the moment.
Who are you thinking of getting in?
Well, I've been looking at Callum Wilson for Pookie. If he, after the I don't know if especially if he blanks. Yeah, if he blanks. I mean, but I'm worried. Obviously, I've missed the price rise on Wilson already, and I won't be surprised if he's back up to 8 million before before the end of that game week. To be honest with you, so it's going back to the Bournemouth assets again, and people King Wilson up front game week 1, and who knows, maybe that. Think Steve-O said things are going back to normality as we expected. Robertson, Alexander-Arnold in your case. And Salah. I mean,
I am thinking of taking Robertson out.
Well, that team there is very similar to a lot of teams. Obviously, Otamendi would have been Zinchenko. Obviously, Aurier's in there, but a lot of those players we saw game week 1 drafts. So But no, I certainly think that I think you can afford to just to ride it out, and
Thinking of bringing in Maddison. I like the way he looks.
Wow, Steve,
what did he
your
do
mate
today?
Maddison,
Absolutely nothing.
He didn't play.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
There you go. That's why he didn't do
he's
anything.
just-
No, but no, Leicester. It's one of those where where the point's going to come from. You got Vardy, you've got Maddison, you've got
I'm on a brace today.
well, it's I like Leicester's midfield. I've said it many times. I do like Leicester's midfield. I think Tielemans looks nice. I think Maddison drives, like Steve said in previous weeks, he kind of drives the attack. And a lot of people talking about Perez's position again. And if he played centre, he'd possibly. He had a few chances. I didn't watch the game tonight, so you could probably. So anyone. Apparently, he had a few chances. He split a couple of them, but a lot of people still think.
I think he got an assist.
Yeah, he did get an assist. Yeah.
A quick question for you, Phil. We're obviously discussing the weekend's fixtures. Are there any fixtures this particular game week which you were kind of taken aback with? Anything that stands out for you? James?
Oh, sorry. I think you're cutting out a little bit.
Is there any fixtures out of this weekend's fixtures? Any of them that stood out to you as being a shock?
Any talking points? Anything like that?
I think most for me most sort of went. I didn't really see the Burnley game, Steve. I remember talking to you last week, and you said to me that you thought it was going to be a comfortable win for Burnley. Sort of how.
I don't remember. I don't know if I actually specifically said comfortable win. I probably said that we don't lose to teams that are rivals, but. Yeah, go on.
Okay, How's you're talking about King being a cheap option? What's your opinion on Chris Wood at the moment.
I still think Jay Rodriguez, even though I could be talking about him all season, he'll never start a game. But I think that Dice should play Jay Rodriguez with Chris Wood because their partnership in pre-season was absolutely phenomenal. So, to answer your question, whoever's scoring for Burnley, they're the striker to bring in. And at the moment, Chris Wood is scoring the goals. So he's 6.2, I believe. So he's on form.
Yeah, he's
our fixtures, our fixtures are like I said, when we're playing the rubbish. So we're up against Everton next. We ain't gonna win. We ain't gonna do anything against Everton. Leicester. So actually, you're asking me at the wrong time. It's basically from game week 11. Between game week 11 and 14, we've got a nice set of fixtures versus Sheffield United, West Ham. We're going to do well. Actually, we do okay against them at home. Watford away and Crystal Palace at home. I think that that is where maybe jumping onto Chris Wood potentially. But but like I said yesterday, just to reiterate the point, I think Jay Rodriguez should be given a start ahead of Ashley Barnes. That's just my opinion. I just think that Jay Rodriguez is biting at the bit there, and he wants to play, and he's an excellent striker. And I'd like to think that Dyche maybe thinks, you know what, they performed well yesterday together, even though it was a 3 up front, but in pre-season they certainly did really, really well together. And I'd like to think maybe Dyche may learn something from yesterday and maybe just give Rodriguez a start, especially as Barnes, from an FPL perspective, hasn't done much over the last 4 now he's blanked. Let's have a quick look here.
4, yeah. And
is it 4 he's blanked? Since Norwich, isn't it? Oh no, since Liverpool it was. Yeah, since Liverpool he's blanked in every game. So, I would get off the Barnes. If anybody's on Barnes, get him gone immediately, is what I'd say.
Thank you, James, for coming on this evening.
Cheers, dude.
Cheers, dude.
Right,
and great game week score. Speak to you soon.
Yes.
58 points. Wow. And guys, if you want to have your say, we've still got some little bit of time left. Come on to Discord. I mean, looking at it, like the Bournemouth assets, I mean, so many people not looking at them at the moment. Keep ticking over those points. I just think that there's a lot of value in King and Wilson. There's a lot of value, and that word where he said it's a cheaper Aubameyang. You know, it's very true, isn't it? Let's bring on Norbets. Norbets, are you there? You're live on the Sunday Surgery.
I'm here.
Good evening, Norbets. Good evening. I'll bring your team up on the screen. You had 53 points this game week. You didn't take a hit.
I did.
Oh, you did take a hit. 4 points.
I did take it. My first hit.
Okay. All right. And what was that? A -4, was it?
I took a -4. Yes.
Took a -4. So 49 points. Still a very decent score for this game week. You're the same as myself. I had Rico in your team. Your captain was Mo Salah. Obviously, it did better than your vice captain did. First and foremost, you've got De Bruyne in your team. A lot of people now are saying, with Man City, you know, he's an absolute animal. He's a freak of nature, as Steve-O would say. Would you be more confident now sticking the armband on De Bruyne?
Yeah, I have never put the armband on him, and unfortunately, I have always missed the good captains, and that's why I'm not ranked even higher than I am.
It was captains means so much, yeah.
Yeah, it has meant so much for me, but I don't think I will stick with De Bruyne. Actually, I think I will try my other options.
Okay, so looking at your team, you got Pickford in goal, picked up 3 points. Tomori with a 7 points, with a bonus 1. Alexander-Arnold, solid 6 points. Rico blanking, Cantwell getting 2, De Bruyne with 9 points, Salah with 3 doubled to 6, Sterling with 7, Mount with 6, Abraham and Haller, and Abraham obviously with a 2, and Haller with the 5. Stuck with Haller. Have you got any initial transfers that you are thinking of making in that team?
Yeah, I just got another transfer back, and I have one transfer, and my plan was to keep that one so I can get 2 next week.
Okay, so you're going to save a transfer, or are you going to make a transfer?
Yeah, that's the original plan, but I have looked at some options as well. And I have Digne at 6.1, and it's possible to trade him off for Pereira if I want. They're just the same price, so I'm thinking a bit on that.
Possibly could be a very, very. I mean, it could possibly work out, but I think Digne's still got. I mean, Steve-O, what's your thoughts on Digne versus Pereira? Do you think that they're just going to kind of even themselves out over the course of a season?
Well, Everton's form at the moment is absolutely shambolic. The next 3 fixtures, Burnley away. Can I see them keeping a clean sheet? No. West Ham, again, I look at defenders obviously from a clean sheet point of view, but Digne, it's the fact that he can get those attacking returns. And I read somewhere that he got 2 goals against us. I'll find out in a minute, actually, regarding Digne versus us last season. He got apparently 2 goals. And then we look at Leicester. Well, we've already gone over Leicester's fixtures. I think they're about as equal, Jason, to be honest with you. I think both players are equal. And you know what? Am I tempted by getting a Pereira? No, not really. I'd rather. I think it's a toss. It's a toss of the coin. And if we quickly look at Pereira, his next fixtures, Liverpool away. I'd rather play Digne at home to Burnley, or away at Burnley. And God, it is tough. It's essentially wait for this particular game week, and then maybe do the swap. In fact, you know what? I may actually do that myself.
Well, we got Theo's in chat saying Digne got 15 points versus Burnley last season. I mean, I'm talking about where can I find that million? Well, I've got Digne as well. And you know, if I'm talking about the Pookie to Wilson upgrade, you know, the beautiful, I don't know. I think the Wilson is just being so consistent that I think he's gonna. I've got a feeling Pookie's gonna drop off. I really do. I know we were all excited, weren't we, at the beginning of the season and the way he's performing, but it really is. I'm gonna say it again, and you're gonna get sick of it. But it's the last chance to lean for Pookie at home to Aston Villa for me.
I'll ask you a question, Jason, which is Kevin De Bruyne worthy of the captaincy every single game week?
Yes, without a doubt. I didn't have to think about that.
Wow.
100%. 100%. He's worthy of a captaincy every game week.
And Norbs, did you just say no?
Yeah, I did say no.
I don't think so. Why, when Kevin De Bruyne is consistently bringing in double digits and single digit returns and the high single digits?
Yeah, he has got some high single digits, but he's also he has played well. He has played against lower teams, and he has played when City has scored a lot of goals. And Kevin De Bruyne is good then because he delivers a lot of assists. But I think also I don't think he will score that many goals. I think he will be the assist king. And
I'll take that. I'll take 2 or 3 assists.
I mentioned this at the start of the season, pre-season, but that is what Kevin De Bruyne is all about. He just gets assists. He's basically 1 in every 4 or 5 games he'll get you a goal, but every game he'll get you a minimum of 1 assist. And like Jason just said, compared to Sterling, compared to Salah,
but if you compare it to Sterling,
the thing is with Kevin De Bruyne. The thing is, very quickly, but I just want to say, like, it's been said all about Kevin De Bruyne. I mean, obviously he was injured. You know, he should be 11 million minimum. Like, the fact that he is 9.5 at the start of the season was just absolute bargain. And he's one of those players, a special player that has got such an ability to play a pass. You know, he sees things that other players cannot and do not see. He sees runs before they're made. He's got the finesse and the ability to pick a player out, get a floater ball in, slide through a player on goal. He is such an important player for Man City. He is the fulcrum of a lot of the attacking play that City do, and I think that you can't turn around and say he's not a consideration every week as a captain. He's got to be there. He's got to be up there. And the likes of, especially at the moment, with the likes of Salah, Mane, they're not exactly. Salah's getting in the positions. He's just not looking very lethal in front of goal. He's, people are sticking with Salah, and I understand why. Do you know what?
No, I'm also sticking with Salah. I'm sticking with Sterling, and I'm not sure if that's the best thing to do, but I don't know where else to put my money. Actually, I have so many good value players now.
Have you got Son in your team?
I haven't got Son. But at the same time, I got Mount, and I think Mount is also a good option.
Yeah, Mount's a good option, yeah.
Cantwell is a good option as well.
I'll definitely take... Yeah.
So it's difficult to know where to put the money, and maybe I should upgrade Haller, but I need 2 trades for that. And my point is that I think Salah and Sterling will explode sometime, and if they score 2 goals, that's 10 points.
Oh yeah, they're big players. They're players that can get you hat tricks.
Yeah, and that's my point also about captaincy, because if Kevin De Bruyne delivers 2 assists, that's 6 points. But if Salah scores a goal, that's 5, and it's way more likely that Salah will score a goal than De Bruyne to get 2 assists, and the same with Sterling.
Well, it's not. You've been proven wrong so far this season.
Yeah, I would disagree. I would disagree there, and I would say also it looks like you look at the bonus points. De Bruyne, it to me is a bonus point magnet, and Salah's not. Like history would dictate. I mean, Salah loses the possession a lot. You know, he's going to get deducted points, and I don't know. At the moment, I would personally, if it was a choice between Salah and De Bruyne, I'd be way more comfortable with putting the armband at the moment on De Bruyne, just because of the eye test more than anything else. Forget about the stats, purely about watching the games. And at the moment, Salah's just not looking up for it at the moment, and it all could change in a blink of lightning. But I'm waiting for him to score like a double digit.
Fire Tog had to come in and throw petrol on the fire and irk me a bit by saying that there's no way in hell that Kevin De Bruyne is going to get 38 assists this season, because I said that he's getting an average about an assist a game. I'm not stupid, I get that, but at the end of the day, in 2016-17, he got 21 assists. You know, so far he's on 9 assists. It's ridiculous.
He's on 9 assists already
so far in 7 game weeks, and Football 365 made the point. I tweeted about it the other day that the way Kevin De Bruyne is playing at the moment, he could be absolutely tanking the assist record this year. 21 assists in 2016-17, 18 in 2017.
He's gonna do better. He's gonna do better if he stays fit. He'll do better. This will be his freak of nature. This will be his best season. This will be his best FPL season. He's certainly not leaving my team. He's one player that I know for definite is going to stay in for the whole of the season. Not even going to think about taking him out. And you know what? Even if he does get benched a few times, I don't care, because he's one of those players that you just can't afford to not have in your team, and you'll rue it. Absolutely. And thank you ever so much for coming on.
No problem.
Thank you, Norbert. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bring on FPL tip. Yeah.
Well,
cheers,
before we do that, we've got FPL Boona with us.
Was he? Is he there?
In the voice chat, and I'm hoping you're there, Boona. How are you doing, mate? You had a good weekend?
Yeah, it's good. Sorry, I've been off the radar a bit. How you been, chaps?
Yeah, not too.
We want to quit FPL.
Yeah, we're going to start up a blogging show. We're going to go out and I know go.
Chaps, I had Aurier. Come on.
Find something else to do.
You know, I know how it feels.
Yeah. Come on, Boona, you were at the game yesterday.
Yes.
How was it? Tell us about Spurs. What you thought?
We showed resilience to grind out the win, I'll say that much. But it was disappointing, obviously, being an Aurier owner. And seeing him getting sent off in that fashion was frustrating. But at the end of the day, my loyalties will always be with my side winning over FPL. And the fact that Harry Kane scored kind of papered over the cracks from an FPL perspective a bit, but all the same, it was quite.
The history came through again for you. You went with Harry Kane as captain. What was it like when he scored a goal and you're actually there as a fan? I mean, it must have been amazing.
Sorry, Steve, cracking up.
What was it like? What was it like for you being a Spurs fan with Harry Kane getting you that return? Obviously having the armband on him. I bet you were absolutely buzzing, weren't you?
I was, but it was bittersweet because it was after Aurier had been sent off, and that kind of left a bit of a bitter taste in the mouth. But you know, it kind of helped a bit, Kane getting that goal, and he was unlucky. He could have scored again, although he dropped deep quite a bit again. He got into some really good positions, and he actually put in a decent performance. I was quite impressed with him, so I'm quite happy going forward with Son and Kane in my team. But like you guys were just discussing whilst I was on mute regarding De Bruyne, he has to come in for me. I admit I made a huge error getting rid of him. But look, you know, we've got 38 game weeks. I made a mistake. I know I need to bring him back in 100%. It's just what route do I go to bring him in now? My team doesn't, despite the Aurier suspension, doesn't actually look bad for next game week. But I don't have an easy route.
That's what I was going to say. You don't have an easy route. You don't know.
It would have to be Mane out, which I'm actually.
You're not thinking of getting Wilson in for Kane.
I don't mind. No. Kane's staying for me because I'm going to the Watford game as well in 2 game weeks time. So I'm going to keep Son and Kane for those 2 game weeks.
Yeah.
And I'll with Liverpool's fixtures, and Leicester. How did Leicester look today defensively?
I don't know.
Because I know they won quite convincingly.
Hayden was sent off after I think it was 20 minutes. I can't remember now, but I think that tells it its own story. I think Leicester were 1-0 up, weren't they, Jason? And then they had Hayden sent off. Was it 2-0 up?
Apparently it was all one-way traffic before the sending off anyway. But I think Newcastle were just diabolical.
I mean, I'm going to be looking out for you. I'm going to wait on my transfers because, like I said, my team doesn't actually look too bad. But I'd be interested in seeing on Thursday what you come up with regarding history for Mane versus Leicester. I don't imagine you've looked into that yet, have you, Stevo?
No. Only Norwich.
That's fine. So, yeah, because that would be a move I'm potentially going to be looking to make. Because I think at the moment, personally, again, I'm with Norbs. I wouldn't captain De Bruyne. I know he's in scintillating form right now. Just personally, I prefer going for that more explosive option, which I agree at the moment De Bruyne is that. But just in seasons gone by, he's not been my preference. But I think at the moment he's as essential to an FPL player as there is.
There's no one more essential. That is it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Yeah.
We don't like to ban the word essential around all the time, but I mean. Personally, I mean, you've got Son and Kane. Do you need both of them in your team? After you said after the next few fixtures, I don't know. I know you're a fan of Kane. I'd be looking to possibly ship out Kane and bring in the likes of a Callum Wilson or a Jamie Vardy, and then use that funds elsewhere to upgrade to KDB where you can before the prices. Because I think that people are going to be bringing him in.
Yeah. They might bring him in. I might just do Mane to KDB then. I think I'd feel more comfortable doing that. Although I know that's probably just going to be like Son to KDB and backfire on me. But hey, look, like I said, the next 2 fixtures for Spurs are pretty decent. So I'm going to roll with it for those 2 games.
And you're going to keep the armband on Kane, I assume.
I'll see. I'm going to go with history. So if Son has the better history against Brighton and Watford, then I might be tempted to go him. So let's see. Yeah, I mean, I've had another mediocre game week, and it seems like that's the way this season's going for me. But I'm trying not to get too bogged down about it. You know, it's a game at the end of the day, and if anyone else is feeling that way, remember we've got another 30 game weeks to go. Like, so much can change. It really can.
Yeah, well, we seem to be kind of, the gappage hasn't shrunk too much between myself and you. I keep looking over my shoulder to see, is Boona going to overtake me? It's just not.
No, I mean, I'm doing just as.
You're doing the same as me. You're doing the same as me. Yeah.
I mean, look at this. Do you know what's crazy? I went Aurier, right? I could have gone anyone. I could have gone Tomori, Soyuncu, Pereira. I could have not made a move and had Kelly off the bench for Walker Peters.
I know.
I went for Aurier. I went for bloody Aurier, who got a -2. If I'd gone for Pereira, I would have been. How many bonus did Pereira get? 1 or 2?
Bonus 2. But it was a straight red, wasn't it, Aurier?
No, he got 1. Sorry, got 1.
Was it bonus 1? Yeah, it was a straight red, wasn't it, for Aurier? I've not seen the actual tackle. Was it 2? Oh, no, I thought he got booked and then he got straight red.
Boona there? Where's he gone?
Well, he got 2 yellows, did he? I thought he got a straight red. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah. So it was right in front of me. He got 2 yellows. The first one was such a silly challenge. He went for like a scissor kick movement, and it was a
Oh, we got
blatant
2
yellow.
yellows.
The second one, Bertrand just used his footballing experience. It was hardly any touch, but he was through, and Aurier kind of brushed against him, and he was through. He would have fed someone in, and that's why it was a yellow. It was just stupidity on Aurier's part. It was so annoying, but he's always got that in him, and that's what was more annoying, even compared to like the fact that he got sent off for me in FPL. Just from a fan perspective, it was just like, what are you doing? Like, you're on a yellow card. Why would you do that? It was a red card. So the 2 yellows were, in my opinion, justified. It was just stupidity, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I bet you were worried at that point that Southampton could get something out of that game, and obviously,
That was my main worry at the time. Forget FPL. It was like, we can't afford to lose this again.
No, but
So,
I mean, you
yeah,
pulled off a
that's
result. Your captain came back. You got 48 points, minus 4, 44. Bang average, like you said. You dropped a little bit, but it's not. You've got Wan-Bissaka, who's probably
2 points, 1 point.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think United are going to get annihilated. I think at the moment United are just not looking good at all.
On to the next one, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I've got Dan James. I'm gonna be holding on to a little thin strand of hope tomorrow night, and we'll be doing a stream tomorrow night during the game. So you'll be either seeing a big smile on my face because Dan James has proven me wrong, or you'll see a big, I don't know, I don't know what facial expression Steve-O will pull, because obviously
I'd be confident, mate.
He would, but he was thinking of captaining, weren't you?
I had the captaincy on Aubameyang up until about 3 hours before the game updated.
Oh, Steve-O should never do that.
And I saw somebody on Twitter who's got a really, really good rank, and at the moment she is 10,000th in the world, and she's got Aubameyang as captain, and she's got really good history as well.
You've already got points in the bank with your Sterling captaincy, though, Steve-O, so I wouldn't be too worried about it. Aubameyang blanks, and then all of a sudden it doesn't look like a bad decision.
But Aubameyang is that differential on everybody. That's the thing, and as from a captaincy point of view, that's the key to have those differential captaincy picks. And
he's going to get a double digit all. I know he is.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, you're going to be happy though, because you're going to be getting those digits. But I'm like I said, I'm praying for a miracle tomorrow night. I really am. But Boona, thank you. Enjoy and travel safe.
Yes, absolutely.
Cheers, dude. Can't be for too much longer, guys. We've got Charlie. We've got a few people waiting. I've got loads of people wanting to come on. FPL tips.
Yeah.
FPL tips. You want your say? It's the Sunday surgery with Steve-O and Jason. How you do?
And after tips, bring on Theo because he's in Australia.
Okay, cool. Tips, you there, dude?
Hello.
How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. How you doing?
Oh yeah, it's amazing, mate. I'm top 1,000.
Oh yeah, well, it's nice.
In my dreams,
all of us, exactly. In my dreams.
Yeah. No, it's not like last season at all. It's diabolical. But whereabouts are you? You've cropped your team thing, so I can't see. I've got to do maths, haven't I? 3, 9, 15.
That's not my team.
Oh, I got someone else's team up.
He's on 50 points.
Yeah, 50. So.
I do apologise. I've brought a Theo's team. Sorry. Let's bring yours up. There we go. Theo, if you could repost your team with the like this, that'd be ideal. Right. So yeah, we'll bring it a bit bigger for people to see. So we've got 50 points. Did you do a hit?
So I did originally on about the last weekend. So straight after the Saturday fixtures, I brought in Abraham and Soyuncu for Van Dijk and Che Adams, and then on Saturday
you got rid of them in the end.
Finally got rid of him. And then Saturday morning, about 15 minutes before the deadline, I suddenly thought, why have I still got Martial in my team? So I did Martial to Mason Mount for a -4.
Oh, nice.
So, I mean, I would have had Greenwood come off the bench. So if Greenwood gets anything more than
that's the thing now, isn't it?
Technically, it's bad, but I would have.
I've been saying all along. I think Greenwood will start. that game, and
Yeah,
if there's
I
anything
agree.
from United, he's gonna be involved. I've got a feeling, and of course, Steve-O's got him playing. So
I agree, but I was going to bring in Mount anyway. So I mean, I've got those 4 points, which I wouldn't have had if I brought him in next week. So
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, looking at your team, obviously, you got some interesting picks in there. I'm talking about obviously, you've benched obviously Lundstrom and Digne that week.
well, Din will come in for
Yeah,
a
yeah,
chance if he
yeah.
doesn't play. But yeah,
Yeah, and you got Woodman on the bench because obviously Pope.
yeah.
Why do you do that? This is troll people.
Just so that my rank at the end goes up a little
Right,
bit than what
okay.
I thought I was going to get.
Right, okay. Because I always look at people that do that. I'm thinking, are you just doing it to wind people up? Because
pretty much.
just in like cash leagues and little mini leagues or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But no,
yeah,
but your captain paid off, didn't it? You had Tammy Abraham. Were you thinking about putting the armband on Abraham, or was it always going to be Sterling for you?
As a Chelsea fan, I am enjoying having Abraham now in my team, but I was never gonna put the armband on him. I don't trust him quite enough to be consistent enough yet. If he explodes, his ownership is still low enough that it's a differential that I was just never gonna put it on him. I mean, I captained Sterling and I got 7. And when that goal went in, I've never felt so lucky.
Relieved, probably.
So relieved, yeah.
Yeah.
You should have seen me at the start of the stream last night. Fucking mad. Oh, I swore then.
It's just...
Can't bleep that
out. I just don't know what to do with Sterling and Salah, to be honest. I mean, they're staying in my team. They've got a good fixture this weekend, but Sterling just looks off it. Like, I don't know what to do with him.
But I think ultimately, if I own Sterling at this point, the question would be, who would I be getting in for him, essentially? And if you were thinking to bring someone in, I mean, you've got the likes of Son, it will save you money. But realistically, in midfield, who would you get in for Sterling that would keep up with him?
I've sort of been looking at this, and there are 2 options I've got. The first option is keep him.
Don't say Pepe. Don't say Pepe.
It's not Pepe. Definitely not. It's keep him for their next 4 fixtures, which is Wolves at home, Palace away, Villa, and Southampton, and then sell him to Mane and just have De Bruyne, because after that, that's when Liverpool go on their incredible run of fixtures at Gameweek 13. Or sell Sterling and with 2 moves, bring in Aubameyang.
You're talking about taking out Sterling and having only one Man City asset in your team. Man City, who I think Man City, I mean, they are by far...
You've got to have Triple City.
They are the most lethal attacking team in the Premier League. They have shown and demonstrated on more than one occasion that they can score for fun.
Yep.
And
I agree that they can score for fun, but the difference between City and
the goals
Liverpool
come from lots of different places. Yeah.
City, the whole team scores for fun. Whereas Liverpool, if I had Salah and Mane, you would be getting a return from one of them pretty much every week.
Well, you say that, but
you say that until they win 1-0 this weekend and they both blank. Yeah,
they've not been that amazing this season so far. So I mean, like, I will be tuning in. Obviously, I'll be on air during the preview show for Game Week 8, and I'll be listening very carefully to the history between Mane and work out what's it. See
Aubameyang is really one I'm considering a -4 to Sterling to Aubameyang. His fixtures, I mean, I find it so hard to ignore him with his fixtures. He just loves every game week. There's not one player in the game who scares me as much as Aubameyang. No
really?
one.
No, I don't believe that. Why?
I'm being honest. I'm being completely truthful here. There's no one, when I see him playing and his ownership, I think, I wish I owned this player.
Who would you get in for Sterling then?
It's Aguero.
I mean, I'm an Aguero owner, as you know, and I could easily downgrade. Well, I'd say downgrade, but I could just switch out Aguero to Aubameyang.
Well, I could do Sterling to
I can't
and upgrade Greenwood and play a 3-4-3.
Something in me, every fibre of my being tells me that I've got to stick with Aguero, and yeah, he's even if the minutes aren't going to be 90 minutes guaranteed. I mean, Man City at the moment they're just too much of a threat, and I'm not saying that Aubameyang is. I mean, I think Aubameyang is going to score really well, and the fixtures are great, and who knows, I may do that switch at some point for those fixtures, but it's this whole phrase of you can't have them all, and
it's true.
You know, I would love to have Vardy in my team. I would love to have Aubameyang in my team. I would love to have Harry Kane in my team. I would love to have, you know, Pereira in my team now because he's looking good. I just can't afford him. I mean, I would love to have Mason Mount in my team. I can't afford him at the moment. It's just these. You've got to put that formula of players together that is going to keep up with these point hauls. And just,
I agree,
you know.
but with the thing that worries me about Sterling especially is how good the players that also play in this position are. And I know I've been telling people, don't worry, Sterling goes straight into the lineup, but Mahrez has been sensational.
Did you hear what I said earlier on? About I had like an epiphany. I thought, well, how about if we looked at it slightly different, and if we just completely took the 12 million value out of the equation with Sterling, and we went with a trio of midfielders of say Bernardo Silva, Mahrez, and De Bruyne. Obviously, with that,
and then you accept that
you accept that there's going to be a bench in, and then have the likes of Mason Mount, McGinn, perhaps as well there to kind of come in as a cheapy option. You know, that to me is another and a minus 24 epiphany. Here we go, guys. I'm going to take a minus 16. Let's do it, guys. Let's do it live on air. No.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll do it now. I'll do those particular players and see what I can come up with. Well, have you got any final thoughts, FPL tips? Because we're running a bit close to time, and we want to get one final caller on Theo.
No, not really.
Thank you.
Just have you got Norwich in your team? The pair of you.
I've only got Pookie.
Pookie and Cantwell, or just Pookie?
Just Pookie.
And you plan on holding him?
No, not well. If he does well against Aston Villa, I may do.
I think this is a make and break week.
It is,
for a lot of us here.
It's the last chance saloon.
If he scores here, then we sort of accept he's going to blank every so often. But he's also, those home games are great for him. But I have the opportunity, if Martial's still out, to play Greenwood against Newcastle instead of Cantwell. And I was wondering what you thought on that.
Well, you've got Pookie in already.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I would use tomorrow night as a measure. Yeah. So just find out what if Greenwood starts tomorrow night. That shows you that Ole trusts Greenwood.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then base your decision on that. If he starts Greenwood tomorrow at home to Arsenal, play him because it's that fixture's great. Newcastle awful.
Yeah. Okay.
Cheers, Eve. Cheers, mate. Speak soon.
Cheers. Thank you.
FPL tips, everybody. 50 points with a -4. That's still very good points for this week. We're bringing on Theo all the way from down under. Good day.
Oh, hello.
That's atrocious.
Oh, it's as good as yours, Steve. How you doing, Theo?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. I've been better, but talking about fantasy football, how have you done this week?
I've got some breaking news. Sorry, Theo, to interrupt on this breaking news, but it's regarding this idea of Jason's having 3 cheap Man City midfielders. In this case, I've just gone with David Silva due to the reliability of his minutes, and Mahrez and De Bruyne. At the moment, I could go a 3-4-3 and I'd have, for example, for argument's sake, Aubameyang up front, Firmino and Pukki for Liverpool coverage. I've got my Trent Alexander in. I've got Pereira in. I've then got Gilbert, Lundstrom and Rico. My other midfielder is Mount, and I've got 6.5 left in the bank. So maybe Jason is onto something. Maybe, Jason, you are actually onto something there. And I could get rid of Firmino, bring in Callum Wilson, and then I could maybe bring in, say, Mane instead. Let's just quickly go through that. No, I couldn't quite do that. But yeah, Jason, I think you're potentially onto something, my friend. But Theo, let's hear it from you. Are you enjoying this game week so far? Or are you thinking of quitting the game like me and Jason?
Yeah, I've had a very bad year. I think I've taken minus 36 this year overall. So I'm basically done.
Although to be fair,
is that counting the points that you've lost out on as well?
No. I've actually made that many hits.
Oh, God.
So.
To be fair, we had Aguero on earlier on, not the Aguero, but he had 24 points worth of hits, and he's 100 and something thousandth. So, what's your rank, Theo?
Well, I'm 1.4 now, but with
0.4 million.
Yeah, I've got no more. I've got no players in the next game, so.
So you're the same level as me then, doing absolutely appallingly. What are you putting it down to? What do you think is the reasoning as to why you feel you're doing so bad?
Captain fell, surely.
No, actually, the captain has saved me, to be honest.
Oh.
I think I saw Vince in the chat. He said he's been, blanking with captains most weeks. If that was me, I'd probably be down on the 5 million. I've gotten really lucky with captains, so.
Were you one of these? Obviously, you didn't benefit from De Bruyne's points previous week then. So you captain Aguero previous week.
No, I captained De Bruyne. I got Aguero in this week.
Oh, wow. Okay, straight on the money then. But obviously this week, 45 points. You didn't take a hit, I would assume.
I took a -8, but yeah, that was.
Oh, you did take it. You took a -8, and that's part of the 36 points hits you've done, right? So
yeah.
So -45, -8, 37. A week to forget, isn't it? And looking at that team, obviously Dini's going to play, I'd imagine, next game for you. What's your thoughts of Zinchenko? He was awful.
Yeah, he was. I've used my free transfers, Zinchenko, Otamendi, and my team. I'm really happy with my team.
Okay, that makes sense. So I'm assuming you're paying. Are you going to play Cantwell, or are you going to play a 4-3-3?
Yeah, 4-3-3. Yeah, Digne on for Cantwell.
Yeah. Okay, so 4-3-3, Digne on for Cantwell. You've got the players that people are wanting to get in. I mean, you've got the Alexander-Arnold player that I don't own, I want in. You've got the Aguero and the De Bruyne instead of the same as me essentially. You've not gone with Sterling. I think you've got points there. What's your thoughts on Pukki? A lot of people talking about last chance for Pukki. Are you one of those people?
Yeah. Look, I'm looking to keep him, but yeah, he's got a home game against Villa, so we'll see how he goes. He's got a good home record.
And obviously you got Soyuncu in there. You've got to be happy with that point return from Soyuncu.
Yeah, that was one of my hits. Coleman to Soyuncu.
Oh, Coleman. Yeah.
Coleman got an assist, but yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? But I mean, ultimately, it's not a bad team that, and you just got to keep getting. Who's your captain going to be next week?
De Bruyne.
De Bruyne. Okay, yeah.
I know he's got Wolves, but
he's just no. Honestly, I think he's a candidate every single week. He should be up there with a strong contender for the armband. Definitely the way he's playing. Steve-O, I don't know what's happened to your camera. You've gone all small. But in all seriousness,
I learned about that. Apparently, actually, it doesn't matter.
You learned about, but in all
I did learn about it, but it doesn't matter.
Okay. In all seriousness, though, I think you've done enough hits. I certainly wouldn't think you've done your Otamendi move. I think you're set now, and don't take any more hits. Is what I would say. Your team's looking good, like you said.
Yeah, I definitely won't. From now on, I'll try to stay away.
And hopefully next week you'll be well above the average. Cheers to you.
Yeah, Hopefully.
So thank
Yeah,
you,
thank you.
Nice one, dude. I
Cheers,
think that
Yeah.
concludes tonight's show, Jason.
It does, guys. We've ran over slightly because we're pressed for time this evening. Thank you, everyone. Please hit that like button. It really, really helps us out. If you hit that like button, just a little tap of your finger, just hit that like button for us, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed. We've got elitefpl.com where we've got the score predictions where you guys can go on there. At the moment, we're going to be looking at the first month winner, which we'll do probably not tonight. We'll do that tomorrow night.
Do you know, funny enough, on the score predictions, I looked at the updated table. I'm thinking I did really well yesterday, and I'm still failing at that. I can't believe it. And there's some freak at the top that's absolutely dominating on 26 points. I'm thinking, who on earth doing, like, I've done really well in predictions, and yet I'm still failing, and all these other people.
I just hope he's putting some bets on down the bookies, because that guy's just is getting everything right. But no, in all seriousness, we'll look over the prediction league tomorrow night. We'll discuss the prize is a Timo Pukki shirt. Not signed by Steve-O, not signed by me, but it'll be sent out to you. We'll discuss the winner there, and we'll also obviously talk about the Manchester United Arsenal game tomorrow. That's going to be interesting. Me and Steve-O both own different players. Admittedly, Steve-O's got the advantage here, and I'm hoping that the Aubameyang doesn't punish me. And I think Steve-O's 20 points behind me or something like that, roughly. I think I've got a feeling he's going to be right on my heels come the end of tomorrow night.
I bloody well hope so.
I really, really do. And it's been a great night, guys. Thank you all the callers that have come on. Follow us on social media at Elite FPL, Twitter, Instagram. Come on Discord, !Discord in chat. We'll give you the link. Jump on in. Watch the video if you're not quite sure of Discord. It was posted earlier today. Any final thoughts, Steve-O?
No, I'll just quickly go for that wildcard team that I just quickly did just for a bit of fun regarding your opinion on 3 cheap Man City midfielders. Right now, it stands as Nick Pope in goal, Rico, Pereira, Alexander-Arnold, Lundstrom, Gilbert, Mount, Mane, De Bruyne, David Silva, Mahrez, up front, Callum Wilson, Abraham and Pukki. So it's looking good. That's all I will say.
It's a good team. It's a good team, and I don't know. I think... maybe we're looking at the City trio differently. Maybe there's more value to be got. But thank you ever so much, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, see you all tomorrow evening, 8 o'clock. Just of interest, whereabouts are you? Not in the world, but are you near like an industrial machine or something? It's very 2 seconds. Just ask a couple of questions. I just need to get the door for a second.
No
Sorry,
problem,
this is what happens when you're live.
What's going on? No, not really. I'm waiting to go to gym. What about yourself? Live on YouTube doing a stream.
Why do you feel that you're constantly changing your teammate? Is it just there's just
I'm
so
hearing
many ideas?
So many ideas, so many different perspectives. I blame Brett Mollison for his 5 at back, because when you see my new team,
wow.
Brighton home, they couldn't buy a goal in the last season.
Well, I don't know. Dan's got Glenn Murray. I think he'll have a word to say about that.
I'm detecting possibly a German accent. I'm probably completely way out. But where are you calling us from?
South Africa.
On the first day, I literally just typed in FPL, like first draft, and yours came up like first. So I thought, I'll watch one of the live streams when it comes on. And then I thought, this is a bit long, isn't it? About 2 hours in. And then 3 hours later, well, an hour later, I was like, yeah, these seem alright, you know. Steven's not that bad.
I have one question for you. I want you to predict the order of the Elite FPL ranking. So, like, who do you think will finish first, second, and third out of y'all 3 this season?
So it's certainly, no disrespect to Dan, but it's certainly going to be between me and Jason. And right now, as it stands, I'd go with Jason because my history suggests that I'm going to be having a bad season.
So I've got the 5 at the back. I just see a lot of value there. I feel like if I don't have Salah, I can spread the money elsewhere and maybe get the points another way.
All the teams now except for obviously Salah and Sterling, these players, a lot of players are going to change towards the start of the season just because of new transfers, injuries that could happen, and all of that. So for me to tell you now, like personally right now, I'd say definitely if Tammy Abraham or Batshuayi are cheap, I'd get one of them just because I don't care about the Man United. We can score against them at least 2 or 3.
Hey guys, this season we're using Discord. It's a text and voice application where you can talk all things FPL with fellow community members. You can post your team in the Rate My Team, talk in the general chat, you can look at transfer news, look at awesome GIFs, sign up for our Cash Mini League, look at our previous podcasts, and even join us live on air in one of our streams. We look forward to seeing you guys. Link is in the description, or look at the code on screen.